Hey Aaron, this is going to be your video on how to operate your lightsaber. As you can see, it's done. I haven't posted any videos on TikTok of making it yet. I have the videos, but I decided to try something a little bit different with your saber than I have with the previous ones. I decided to film it in a horizontal format, so maybe I could make it into a longer form or multi-part series on YouTube. And then I'll work on editing it into a TikTok video as well if I can. But that's going to be my experiment there. But as you can see, I do have it done. I don't want you to wait for the videos to come out in order to get your saber. This is the chassis, absolutely beautiful. As you can see, I do have red wires running down the sides. I made sure to keep them nice and even to try and keep it visually balanced. I put the Bluetooth in here, glued it in place. This is the Smuggler's Outpost Dark Side speaker. I think it sounds pretty nice. This is your OLED display, your buttons, and then here I spent a while thinking about what I should do for this little section. I decided to leave it open wired because it just keeps it more evenly visually balanced, because when I tried having the red or black heat shrink on it, it just looked off. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but when I had it there, it just didn't look very good. I like this because it keeps it visually balanced between the wires in the middle, at the end, and here. I think it looks pretty good. Let me know what you think, but this is what I decided to go with because I thought it looked the best. You will be seeing wires in there, unfortunately. There's like nothing I can do about that. There's no spaces I can hide it, or nothing I can put above it to hide it, which is unfortunate, but luckily this is the part you're going to be seeing pretty much all the time. It's just the sides and then the top. So to activate it, you put in the battery. I'll be giving you the battery. You'll need a battery charger if you don't have one already. I don't remember if you do or not. I like the LCD screens, lithium-ion battery chargers. I'll send you one if you'd like. There's one on Amazon that I typically send to people. And then you'll also need a magnetic ring. I don't have any more. This is my only one. They're very cheap. You could either get it on the Saber Armory or Amazon. You can get a 3-pack, different sizes, because I don't know what size you'd need either. You can get one of those from Amazon. Just any old magnetic ring is good. And then to turn it on, you just flip the switch. And then I have this being the resting screen, because this is the most visually interesting out of the many different options. So this is the one I chose, but you can always customize it yourself in the config file or SD card. I'll be sending you a bunch of resources in the description of the video on how to customize and update your crystal focus and how to do all that stuff. This is a screensaver right here. There's a bunch of different ones. This one's the Pac-Man version. Force activation. Typically you want it above this area, but it can also detect it here, but it's best if it's around the sides or top of the board. You can experiment with that when you can. There you go. And then I have this animation for when it's on. I have it at 40% volume at the moment just to keep the speaker safe, and I don't think it needs to be more than 40%. I'd say you could maybe put this at 60% in this hilt. I might put that, or I might do that for you before you get the saber, but I have it at 40% just because it's a bit loud when it's louder than that. I'd say 75% probably is the maximum you'd want it just to keep the speaker from busting or being at risk, especially with some of these sound fonts. They can be a bit heavy. So this is going to be your on-off button. You just tap it to turn it on, hold it for like half a second to turn it off, and then auxiliary button for the blaster effects, lockup. I'm also going to be sending you resources in the description of the video for the quick interaction guide, basically all the controls you can do here. I don't remember all of them, so that's going to be the easiest way for you to figure out what it can do. So this is the lightsaber itself. I'm going to say that the weathering Corbanth does, especially on the shiny parts, they do tend to rub off. So just keep that in mind. I tried my best to keep my hands off it as much as possible to make sure that the weathering was on there as much as it could be until you get it, but I'm sure when you get it and play around with it, it's going to rub off. All the rest of this doesn't seem to. Like, none of this seems to rub off. This does, I believe. This might as well, and this might. So just be careful, or if you'd like, just handle it however you wish, and the weathering will, you know, form to how you use it, which tends to be a pretty good type of weathering, but it can be frustrating sometimes. But keep in mind that on the real prop, this wasn't that weathered, and neither were these. I mean, they were weathered, but not quite as heavy, so don't worry too much about rubbing it off, because it'll just make it a little bit more accurate. And of course, you could always try weathering it again yourself, just by adding some acrylic paint or something on it. I haven't gotten into weathering myself too much, but I plan to. When you operate the saber, what you're gonna want is to line up the buttons here with the buttons here. Be very gentle with it. One of the buttons might get caught a little bit. I have them as flush as possible, but just the nature of the hilt. Just put it in and boom, goes all the way in. So just to show you that again, you just put it in. You don't have to be too gentle. Just wiggle it a little bit and it'll go in. Push it all the way, it'll make the chassis connection sound. And then this will be the on button. And then this is the auxiliary button. I noticed that even though everything is completely even, like these are even, and then the buttons on the chassis are even, they're completely flush to the bottom. I made sure of that. This one is a little bit less of a far press to activate it. So like, it's pretty sensitive. This one, you do get a more satisfying click out of it. There's nothing I can do about the differences there, but they still work and it doesn't really impede any function. And then all you have to do is put this on, screw it in, and boom, there you go. I noticed the weathering on this doesn't rub off either, so like you're safe here and here. It's just everything here is a bit risky. And then you can play music by, I think, holding this down. Yeah. So some of the fonts do have music on them. To turn it off, you just hold it when it's off, or double tap when it's on. So to show you again, hold it, turns on, hold it, turns off, or when it's, turns it on. So just double tap to turn it off, it looks like. Again, I'm not too familiar with the controls. Just check out the quick interaction guide I'll be sending you. And then I'll put the blade in. There we go. The retention screw is going to be here. You can just use that to tighten it up, or if it's snug like this, it won't really need to be in because it won't fall out. And then let me just adjust the phone a little bit to make it higher so you can see more of the blade. There you go. And then there you are. All right. So force activation. There we go. You can see the blaster bolts localized, so it randomizes throughout the blade. And then the lockup, I believe the lockup also adjusts based on the angle. And the ignitions will also adjust based on the angle. If you point it in a certain direction, it'll make a different sound. You'll take note of all those things. You can also read the manual. I'll send that to you as well. There's a lot of pages in it though. Something else would be, you turn it on and press both auxiliary and activation at the same time. It goes into spectrum mode. You can change the colors to whatever colors you'd like. Put it back on blue here. And then if you want to continue in spectrum mode, just hold down the auxiliary button and it'll go to blade profiles. Then you can choose between the multiple different animations that I have set up. I'll go back to the one it was on, which I believe is this one. So you can cycle through the colors and blade profiles just by doing that. It's magnetic. That was the ring. If you want to cycle through the sound fonts, you just hold down the auxiliary button.
Sound bank selection.
Auxiliary goes forward.
Purple.
Activation goes backwards. If you want to jump forward by 5, you just press both.
With CrystalFX.
I have about 30 different fonts, 30 colors, 30 blade profiles on here. I'll show off the one I always show off because it's fun.
Youngling.
There you go. Rainbow, so it really shows off the capabilities of NeoPixel. So that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty much all you need to keep in mind. There is one other way you can change through the fonts, and that's just by holding down the activation button and then clashing.
This is General Kenobi.
There we go, see.
Ancient prophecies.
There you go. So when it's off, just hold down activation and clash and it'll go forward. If you hold down the auxiliary button, it'll cycle. It'll go into the sound font bank, but it'll start from the very beginning because that's how it's set up with tangible font selection, which is how you get the chassis detection. You can always change all these things in the config file however you want in the future. I guess I'll take it apart. If it ever freezes or does any sort of glitches, what's great about CrystalFocus is you can literally just turn off the saber and turn it back on and it'll fix pretty much anything. Looks absolutely beautiful. I love this chassis. There we go. And then I will show you cycling through the different screens. You can press the auxiliary button and it'll cycle through. This here is the magnetic field detector. It's the midi-chlorian scanner. As you can see, when I get closer, it gets higher and higher. Once it reaches a threshold, it'll turn on, which is pretty neat. And then I believe there's also this. This is the battery level indicator. At the moment, the battery is completely charged except for that tiny little bar, but this is how you can keep track of what your battery is. This is the sound font. And this is the firmware, floating crystal, and then we're back here. And then it'll go to sleep, it'll have different kind of screensavers or whatever when it shows. And I believe this should be everything, except Bluetooth. I'll go over Bluetooth real quick. I don't have another phone to show you at the moment, I just have the one that's recording. But the thing to keep in mind is when you do use the Bluetooth, this will also be in the description. It'll be either ForceSync, which works pretty well, but not as good on CrystalFocus as the next one, which is CrystalFX. CrystalFX is the CrystalFocus Bluetooth app, and that's where you can edit all of the blade styles, upload different blade styles from the library onto the lightsaber. It's really, really good. You can update the firmware, you can run code and commands. It's great. You can just edit it from there. You don't even need a micro USB. You still may need to do a few things on the SD card in the computer, but there's very few and far between where you do need to use that. So this is going to be your lightsaber. One more thing, Bluetooth, it will ask for a code. It's going to be 6 zeros, so 000000, and then it won't ask again because it'll remember the lightsaber for the future, unless you go to a different device. But on the same device, it'll remember it. Again, all of this is going to be in the description of the video, so just refer to that if you have any questions, or if there's anything that pops up that isn't there, just feel free to ask me. I will be more than happy to help. Hope you like the lightsaber. Sorry it took a tiny bit longer than expected. I've been very, very busy last month, but I got this done pretty quickly, and I can't wait for you to see the progress of how it gets put together, and hopefully that video comes out pretty well. It'll be one of the more interesting YouTube videos I make. So, hope you enjoy it. May the Force be with you. And goodbye.